In this video, I'm going to explain the advanced off-day carb strategy that I've used with hundreds of my personal clients and how to do this properly. And so we're going to go through why we implement an off-day carb strategy, when we can implement this, how to do it properly, and actual strategic takeaways on how to exactly do this to reach your fat loss goals. So my name's Adam Buttle. I'm an online fat loss professional, and I specialize in metabolic priming, which is a process of metabolism manipulation. And I've used this exact strategy with hundreds of my online clients from 7 different countries, getting them to elite level body compositions. And today, I'm going to give it to you all just for free. So this is an actual question that I got from one of another subscribers that we've had on a couple of our videos on the off-day carbohydrate strategy that we use. And I want to do a video and just explain it all for you in general. And so for the guys who are commenting and subscribing onto the channel, appreciate you guys because it allows us to know what you guys want to see, what type of content you guys want to see. And just for context, if you guys ask specific questions about you in general, probably won't answer it, but I'll ask very broad questions that I can answer for the majority of people, if that makes sense. And so anyways, getting into the video, I want to kind of explain in detail this off-day strategy and why we implement it, right? So the reason why we implement an off-day carbohydrate strategy is to get a little bit more granular on calories in versus calories out. So I took this strategy from actual carb cycling, and with it is the concept of it is that we lower the carbohydrate on the days that you do not train, because understanding calories in versus calories out, on the days we don't train, we're not burning as many calories. And so carbohydrates in general are the main mechanism of the carbohydrate metabolism process that we use within our clients. And so if we know that our body is utilizing carbohydrates as the main fuel source, we can lower those carbohydrates on those off days, a little bit less carbohydrates to match the caloric in versus caloric out, right? And so what this looks like is when we can implement this is usually on week 2 to 3 of the metabolic priming phase. So if you guys don't know what metabolic priming is and you're brand new to the channel, go watch the main video pinned on my channel. It'll tell you everything you need to know about metabolic priming and manipulating your metabolism. But usually on week 2 to 3 of the metabolic priming phase, we implement this within our clients. So once calories hit 2,200 or 2,300 per day, we implement an off-day carbohydrate strategy, which means we lower the carbohydrates ever so slightly on the days that you do not train. So for example, if we are training 5 days a week, on those 5 days, we should be hitting macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. And on those 2 days that we are off, we should be lowering the carbohydrates to meet the caloric input versus the caloric output. So once carbs hit 200, 250 per day, that's when we really start to implement this strategy. And why we start to wait a little bit, because we really want to give the body a chance to adjust to carbohydrates, because the process of what we use and how we use carbohydrate metabolism for our clients is we transition their body into using carbohydrates as the main fuel source. And so lowering these carbohydrates ever so slightly on those off days, once the body really adjusts to a carbohydrate metabolism state, becomes a lot more beneficial. And so let's explain on how to do this properly, okay? So this is an actual screenshot for one of my current clients that I actually just screenshotted from his current plan. And this is what we actually do on his off days and his training days. So his current goals on his daily nutrition goal for just his training days is 200 protein, 275 carb, and 60 grams of fat. And so notice on his off days, we actually just lower the carbohydrates 25, so 100 calories in total. And so we're kind of matching those off days with the actual caloric output that he's using on those off days. And so with that, what we really want to understand is that why we drop 25 to 50 grams of carbs and 100 to 200 calories is the overall concept of calories in versus calories out. Because at the end of the day, you can't run from the law of thermodynamics, which is calories in versus calories out in a 24-hour period. And so if people are out there preaching about fasting or OMAD, what you have to understand is it's just calories in versus calories out in a day's time. But with that being said, this is why we utilize 25 to 50 grams of carbohydrates on those off days a little bit lower. And so yes, if we get into a very high carbohydrate amount, like 300, 400, 500, we may do a slightly bigger deficit and a bigger offset between carbohydrates in on the training days and on the off days. But typically 25 grams is pretty standard. And 50 grams, it typically, if maybe somebody needs a little bit more adjustment and a little bit more offset on their training days, we might use that. But typically, I think you'd be good to start with just 25. I think you see pretty good body composition changes just from that. So here's the strategic takeaways and what I really want us to understand, because I'm going to try to map this out and so we can really understand it at a higher level. So Strategic takeaways are once calories hit 22 to 2300 or carbs hit 200 to 225, add off-day calories. But here is the caveat, and this is what I want to explain and why I'm going to show you this in kind of a side-by-side in a metabolic priming phase versus the cutting phase. So when calories are dropping in a fat loss phase, we actually take those back out, right? We take those back out when we start to get a little bit lower in carbohydrates, so we can flatline everything through the week and know when we're in a fat loss phase what macronutrient or what type of cardio, if we implement more cardio, if we lower calories, has the biggest effect. Because in a cutting phase, what you're really trying to do is read data, right? And what I mean by read data is, let's say that one week we lower 25 grams of carbohydrates and we lose 2 pounds. Okay, well then we know that carbohydrates and lowering a little bit of carbohydrates are the main needle mover. And the same thing applies for like cardio. Let's say that we raise cardio 25 minutes one week and we see a 2 to 3 pound fat loss strategy within that week. Well, then we know that, the actual cardio is making a big impact. And so we don't try to change too much at once. And I want you guys to understand that it's all about data, right? So reading the data in a fat loss phase. But let's kind of map this out and see what it looks like. Just like from me explaining from an overall concept of first the metabolic priming phase and then the cutting phase. So anyways, typically when guys come to us and what a metabolic priming phase is, we cut all cardio and we really try to focus on BMR, right? Raising the BMR up as high as we can. And to do that properly, we take their cardio, starting up with simple 10K steps, and then we start raising this calorie goal each week. And as we raise this calorie goal, what we're trying to do is we're trying to mimic your BMR associated with the calories that you're intaking, right? And so that will give you not only a good body composition effect, but it'll also tighten you up, it'll lean you out, it'll grow lean muscle tissue, and, in a concept, in a lot of cases, a lot of clients lose a lot of weight eating more food. So if you're new to my channel, welcome, because all of our clients actually do, eat more food and lose body fat. So anyways, but the concept is like, as we start to get up and we start to get around this 22 to 2300 gram calorie mark, that's when we start to really, push the BMR up, and we'll add an off day, right? And on your off days, maybe you'll be eating 21, but on your training days, you'll be eating 22. But that kind of gives us a little bit of an offset from calories in, calories out perspective. And then as we get up in the metabolic priming phase, we keep that. Each week as we raise our clients' carbohydrate intake, we will raise 25 grams of carbohydrates on the training days and 25 grams of carbohydrates on the off days, right? And so we're pushing both days up very slightly each week, making one change per week. And so, the whole concept of this is to see if we can get these calories up as high as possible with optimizing BMR. Because what we're doing is we're pushing the body to burn more calories before we go out in a cutting phase and burn more calories. And so, on the opposite end of things, what this looks like coming back down is that let's say that we optimize the client's BMR, we get him up to 3,200 calories, and he's at zero cardio. So the first thing we do is start like 20 minutes of cardio, we'll lower a little bit of food, and we'll wait till body adjusts, right? So like how the BMR really works, and from the scientific perspective of your basal metabolic rate and the thermic effect of food and just metabolic adaptation in general, is that over time, yes, this will start to decrease ever so slightly, and that's just kind of how metabolic adaptation occurs in a cutting phase. But what we're really trying to do is we're trying to inch this back down, inch this back up, and right when we get around this 23 to 2200 gram mark, we'll usually cut their off-day calories, right? And because we want those extra carbohydrates to refuel, because the lower you get in calories, the less resources that you actually have within food in a lower calorie amount, the more carbohydrates you need for the reduction of inflammation, oxidative stress, and adrenal fatigue. And so, like once we get to that 2300 calorie mark, that's when we'll just drop the off-day calories a little bit, because one, we're doing a lot more cardio, our BMR could use more carbohydrates, and so like on those off days, we'll just flatten everything out in the week, and now we know if we like lower 100 grams of calories, we can kind of see through the data how it affected their body, and the same thing applies with cardio. If we raise their cardio 10 minutes and don't do anything to the calories, and we see a massive change in body composition, but also weight, we know that now cardio is a huge stimulus for us, and we want to kind of focus in on that. And that's how you make changes within the cutting phase. But the overall concept of what I want you to understand, the key takeaways that we can utilize today is whatever your calories, macronutrients are as of right now, on the days you do not train, whether it's 3 or 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, or the days you do not train, just simply lower your macronutrients 25, right? Because that'll give you a good offset and be able to match the calories in versus calories out. It's a best practice and kind of a little bit more advanced practice that we use with each one every single one of our clients. But like it is a great strategy, and like from a logical perspective, just think about it. It makes sense, right? Because as you lower your calories, and as you start to get up in calories, you should probably lower those in the days that you don't train because you're not outputting as much energy, right? And so like this concept I kind of took from carb cycling a while back, and I'm not like a huge fan of carb cycling in general. But like I am a fan of like understanding caloric output versus caloric input and matching the two to it just makes sense. And this is where we get a great body composition change from just a lot of our clients. And our track record does speak for itself. But like I wanted to explain the carbohydrate strategy that we did use. So anyways, if you like this type of video, like, comment, subscribe. Keep putting, commenting in the videos on questions you guys want to hear about like anything that you guys got going on. Make it more majority focused, not as individual focused, because like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm not really going to focus on fixing every individual issue. But if you have a higher level view focus that you guys want me to make a video on, just put it in the comments below. But make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and support the channel. Turn the bell notifications on. We do videos on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Whole purpose of the entire channel is to get you guys to that next level physique. So like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys on Friday.